What is going on, guys? Bert Devoten here, and we're back with another great video. Oh, I'm gonna lose it. I think going forward, I need to start making more scripted, edited videos because I can't make it through this shit with a straight face. So what we're gonna be talking about today is hopefully something that can go over pretty quickly because the examples of it will be so clear cut. Is inference and false equivalencies. And originally I had planned on making two separate videos, but if you were to create like a Venn diagram of these two topics, they would overlap, I would say conservatively 97% of the time. Literally, I'd say 99.999% of the time, they just completely overlap. And the thing is that a lot of people will I don't think they necessarily see it when it comes to how websites specifically set up thumbnails, um, and how they edit them and construct them and put them out with very, again, misleading headlines. And that's really all it takes on social media, I've noticed, to get people whipped up. Is there are so many people that are just headline readers. Not only do they not read the so-called article that a story links to, but almost never do they go to the cited source, which I'd say 9 out of 10 times pretty much contradicts what the narrative the person is trying to construct. So this is a guy, I don't know if you know who he is. He's just, I don't know, another, I'm gonna go ad hominem right away. He's a fucking douchebag. um he touts himself as an intellectual, but I mean, he has no background in anything that I know of. I mean, I don't even know if he's got a degree. If he does, I don't know exactly what he could have gotten that in. But here we go. This is the headline. This is what I love. And this is not only a false equivalency, this is a flat out lie, but lies can also have inferences and false equivalencies in them that may justify the lie itself, or I don't want to say are like casually thrown in there or unknowingly thrown in. I have to think that the way these are worded, they not only know that they're lying, but they're just like going all in on it. So the quote is like, I'm gonna read this verbatim. This is amazing. Far left transgender activists disguised as medical professionals have captured the entire pediatric field. I'm gonna read that again. This is so great. Far left transgender activists disguised as medical professionals have captured the entire pediatric field. So this is when I hear that, I'm think this is the most ridiculous fucking thing I've ever heard. But other people will get like an inference and think that they probably take this as gospel, right? That like transgender activists put themselves not only through an undergraduate program, but then into the like they got a medical degree, right? They put themselves through med school just to be a far left transgender activist and to specifically capture the pediatric field. Like, it's so outlandish. Like, it's beyond the pale in terms of anchoring to any sort of logic or reason. But this is what I mean by that. The far right extremists, and I would categorize the Daily Wire as being one of these, is they learned a very harsh lesson from Barack Obama's term, in that he captured social media and the youth culture to get involved in politics at that time. And this is something that Republicans, are they're trying their I would say they're moderately successful through like the Heritage Foundation and the Federal Society in like different offshoot branches of what they call leadership councils that they do across the United States. But even then, I don't know, I don't feel like it goes very far. The furthest we've seen is that who's that federal judge that Trump shopped for? Amy Barrett Conan's, what's her, Cannon, Judge Cannon in Florida. Like that's probably the most extreme example of basically taking a Federalist Society judge with no actual federal case background and putting them on a federal bench. And so there's, I guess what I mean by is this is kind of going into social media. They've learned from that, and now what they're trying to do is get younger people and target a much younger audience to drive their side of the story going into every election cycle. And this last one has been, I don't know why, but it's like, well, I don't know why they picked transgenderism as like their go-to thing. But it's just that otherizing, creating an enemy to create tribalism, you know, of red versus blue, and to justify demonizing and dehumanizing other Americans, you know, not only to vote against them, but then, you know, if inevitably, as it already has because of this guy, violence breaks out where, like, you know, bombings are threatened or followed through, like the people doing it are like, well, you know, I read this online and this guy's telling the truth and I believe it. And you all are trying to protect these Jeffrey Epstein, whatever. And it's just amazing to me, the disconnect in logic. And even from the headline, to think that someone who is a transgender activist, and again, they would have to basically be indoctrinated in this, right? They'd have to be I don't even know what a transgender activist is, but I guess someone who's very pro transgender decides to get an undergrad and put themselves through med school, getting amazing grades and getting through med school, to go specifically into the pediatric field to promote transgenderism. Like it just, man, it's so crazy. But believe it or not, and this is one of those things, I forgot who said it, but if you repeat a lie for long enough, it becomes the truth. And honestly, I don't even think you need to repeat it that much anymore with social media. And you can see here, like, I don't have a Facebook account, but I'm like, if you just look up Daily Wire, look at all of these other accounts, ProgRU, Project Veritas. Wow, ABC News is in there. That's surprising. Ben Shapiro, America, hell yeah. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Court TV, Daily Caller, like, these are all associations that are intertwined and probably backed by a lot of the same political action committees and supposed like nonprofits like ProgRU. And this is, again, just, how did Bannon state it? Like flooding the ether with shit. And it's a specific tactic that we've seen, you know, countries like Russia utilize. Actually, Russia's the only example that I can think of right now, because I think any other, like with like Iran or Saudi Arabia, I mean, they are full on theocracies. I think the reason Russia does it is it wants to maintain the illusion that has some sort of democratic principles. But basically, if you throw out stories or keep changing your story constantly, and we saw this with Trump, is that if you never tell the truth, if all you're doing is lying, no one can call you out on it, basically. That's the idea. And you've seen this with Russia. So you see it with Russia, with Ukraine. They say it's a special operation. It's to denazify. It's to liberate these, you know, so, and they keep changing their story every few months. And again, you can go back to the Trump, and again, God, it actually seemed almost every few days they would change the story or the position on any given thing and say, this is true, and this is true, and this is true. And it doesn't matter if there are people fact checking, because once you've established that you have a tribalistic base, it doesn't actually matter if you tell the truth or not. And that's the thing that is so amazing to me, And so these inferences and false equivalencies get taken as fact. And this is where we've talked about in other videos where cognitive dissonance kicks in, where when you believe something in the brain, everything is, near a chemical, but I would argue primarily, well, it's biochemical, but I'm thinking specifically of neurons that fire on a electrochemical signal. So I talked about this a little bit where like if you have and I'm being very, very general here, right? So let's say we have one neuron that has a specific emotion. That's not how it works. I'm just using this as an example. Say that emotion is anger, and that emotion is tied to ideas in, let's say, three other neurons that are adjacent to it, right? If we keep reading the same shit over and over, and again, like if I was to go to the Daily Wire, oh look, I have what 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. I would say 11. I don't know about ABC News. I'm not sure how reputable they are, but 11 out of the 12 here are pretty much going to repost the same stories written in a little bit different way to get you to believe the same sort of false equivalency or flat out lie. Now, when you get this emotion of fear or anger or whatever associated with the three ideas that are in the neurons around it, as you go through it, it's just like learning any other skill, is that when you keep firing these neurons, less resistance of communication between them is given. So, I mean, it frees up and it's going to fire those other three neurons around it. So basically, like if you do a bicep curl, right? If you do a bicep curl with 5 pounds, the first time that you do it, that 5 pounds seems really heavy and your muscles are sore. But as you keep doing it more and more, your brain goes, well, okay, I know what's going to happen. We have to recruit more muscle fibers to get us to be more efficient at this action. The same thing happens in the brain when it comes to ideas and emotions, which makes it even harder to break away from it. And if you, again, go to like a social media site and you're given, let's even throw ABC News in here. Let's say all of these sites, 12 out of 12 that you start following, all start posting the same stories with the same narrative at the same bombastic sort of level that they do, right? Because some of these sites will repost the same story like 5 or 6 times a day and for weeks on end. It's one of the reasons why I don't go on here very much, and I don't have an account. Is because it's just ridiculous. It's just constant over and over and over. And what they are doing is that they're making it easier for your brain to quite literally believe this. This is how propaganda works. But this is like anything, right? So I'm like, you can be on the left, you can be on the right, and the brain processes works the same way. It's not like it's unique for one political sphere, right? I mean, you can look at this at literally the majority of people in every country, right? When you're born and raised and taught with a certain value system, you typically defend that value system, those ideals. That's just the way the human brain works, right? So it becomes very hard to break out of this. And as I said, even when presented with counterfactuals that directly contradict it, the brain will see that as quite literally pain and will try to get you to disbelieve it. That's what cognitive dissonance is. It's a defense mechanism because you're so efficient at believing a certain thing, it doesn't want you to believe anything else because it's painful to do that. And I know conceptually this is going to seem really weird to people, and it's hard for me because my background in physiology doesn't translate directly to cognitive sciences. This is something I'm currently studying, and it's not something that I can speak on very eloquently because, again, I don't have my degree in it. I'm like barely just started. So let's go into this. I'm going to give you an idea. Now, here is the master of flooding. Like, I'm sure he had to have stated something that was true at some point, right? I can't find what it is, but this is amazing. Check this out.
Our country is going to hell.
Oh shit. Where's the volume on this? Is this coming out or is that just, hold on. Uh-oh. Oh, I might have fucked this up.
Our country is going to hell, and it's going to hell very fast. It's a very unsafe place. We need the largest increase in the hiring of police officers in American history, and that's what this will be. And we'll get that done. I have no doubt, Kevin, we'll get that done. Steve, we'll get that done. We're a war zone. To lead this effort, a joint.
So this is something that I thought was really interesting because before, like, conservatives my entire life have always talked about being tougher on crime and being tough on crime and how that needs to be done. And yet, even when presented with FBI, now the FBI even says that like a lot of local police departments have stopped basically giving their data over. And I want to say like 2022 was the worst year so far. So I cut it off at 2021. But here is the crime data from 2000 to 2021. Does that look like a war zone to you? I don't think so. And it doesn't matter. And you can go through and you can break down the statistical analytics. You can look at the total number. Like, it, that's the thing, is that it does not matter to people. Like, you can quote them every study that you can in like actual empirical data, and they won't believe it. And it pushes them to, again, once you start believing these lies, you will do almost anything to protect them and to, ironically, to perpetuate them. Give an example.
Violent Crime Task Force composed of
Wait for
the
it.
Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security should be tasked with destroying these organizations, and the penalties should be very, very severe. If you look at countries throughout the world, the ones that don't have a drug problem are those that institute a very quick trial death penalty sentence for drug dealers.
So this is where inference and false equivalencies can really shine. Number one, there is no country that doesn't have a drug problem. There are countries that have, I want to say, Thailand. There's another one in the Pacific Rim I can't think of right now. Have very, very strict laws to where he's saying. There's actually several countries. I think I want to say, actually, Saudi Arabia and Iran both may have the death penalty for drug usage. In America, so I'm going to kind of skip over the fact that the cruel or unusual punishment is literally written into the Constitution as something we don't do. And I can't believe we're at a time where people not only voted for, but still support to this day, even after January 6th, even after finding classified documents. Everything he's done to this point, it's just amazing. People will still support someone who doesn't give two shits about the Constitution. I'm 99% sure he has never read it. I bet he has read the US Constitution as many times as he's read the Bible. Zero. Now, the false equivalency that somehow that this could be instituted in America, and the inference that it would be good is so blatant and ridiculous, and that people are like, and hold on. Well, I guess you can't really tell on social media commenters. It's going to be like, oh, we can see who supported. Yeah, you don't know if they're really American, though. So it's one of those things where you're not really sure. But I got to imagine if you went around to Trump rallies and asked people about the death penalty for drug dealers, they'd probably be in support for it. But again, it's one of those things where if you look at the trend over the last 20 years, it doesn't line up with anything. And the opioid epidemic that we went through, which has only exacerbated the methamphetamine epidemic that we're going through, again, was legal.
It sounds horrible, doesn't it? But you know what? That's the ones that don't have any problem. It doesn't take 15 years in court. It goes quickly, and you absolutely, you execute a drug dealer and you'll save 500 lives because they kill on average 500 people. It's
Now that is backed up by nothing. There is no data statistic. I think he just likes to say 500, or maybe he heard it from someone else and he's just basically saying it. He's just like, yeah, 500. One drug dealer, 500 people, and we should execute them on site, basically. Like quick trial, like throw him before a judge that day. If he's guilty, fine, guilty, death penalty. Now, the reason that I bring this up is that, and I've talked about this too, is that there are a lot of people, primarily Trump supporters and primarily people on the right, that want America to be a theocracy. And the reason that I speak out against this so adamantly is, number one, it goes directly against the Constitution. And number two, even today, Iran's parliament, you don't want to call it that, majority voted in favor of executing the 15,000 protesters that they have in Iran who were protesting for the right of women not to wear a hijab in public. Let me say that again. Iran's own fucking government just voted to allow and to make it be a strong statement against protesters to execute 15,000 people. Those are the type of comments that I have seen from fucking Trump supporters over the last 6 years. And it's honestly like, it's almost like cognitive dissonance is trying to kick in and tell me, no, they're not really like that. They really fucking are. Like January 6th was like, like most Americans, when it happened, I was like, oh, they protested a little bit, it's no big deal. And then as the video shit started to come out over the next couple of days, I was like, oh my God, this is like a legitimate insurrection, right? And there are still people, like, as we're going through the trials now of like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, like, you know, top people who are on trial for seditious fucking conspiracy, which is quite literally just a hair under treason. Well, arguably it's the same as treason, but we don't have actually a law against treason. We call it seditious conspiracy. But they're not being tried to the point where, you know, they're going to get hung or killed by a firing squad. Even they are just looking at 20 years in prison for trying to overthrow a fucking election. And this piece of shit is talking about killing a drug dealer. Like, it's just, again, the tether to reality, non-existent.
It's terrible to say, but you take a look at every country in this world that doesn't have a problem with drugs. They have a very strong death penalty for the people that sell drugs. If we're going to stop this scourge.
Yeah, again, if we're going to stop this score, and remember, this is a rate of violent offenses by population. This doesn't even delineate. Oh shit. Oh yeah, this is the outtakes. You guys can check it on your own. It's amazing. But again, the data doesn't support this, and this is all violent crime. This isn't even any sort of association to drug use. So the numbers are going to be way less than this is. This guy, so you're going to see these things again. This is one of the guys that was on here. I don't know how to say his name. But Biden admin called Taliban businesslike and professional. Now they want public amputations, stoning in the report. The Taliban has always done public amputations. They're a theocratic mafia, basically. This is nothing new. And so I think the inference here, and this, again, I don't get inference. I'm kind of taking a stab at the dark, is somehow that Biden supports this is the inference, which would also be a false equivalency. And for those, just real quick, if you don't know what a false equivalency is, if I say, if I say, these 10 people are, they got cancer, right? And 9 of those people like to eat bananas. Well, that must mean that bananas cause cancer. That's a false equivalency. Or another way to say it is like, well, the sun rises every Monday. So every day the sun rises, it must be Monday, right? This is a false equivalency. And again, this is where the overlap happens, where a false equivalency and an inference can be almost the exact same thing. It just kind of depends on how it's written. But here, where it says Biden admin called Taliban businesslike and professional, and then stating now they want public amputations and stoning, that is what Biden considers businesslike and professional. I'm assuming they're talking about the international relationship that we have with the Taliban right now, again, as a complete fucking failure of 20-year Middle East war. But then another one here, Biden, Ukraine, and 30-year-old crypto billionaire, how the implosion of FTX connects the global elite. That is a beautiful fucking headline. Like, I mean, there is so much there of basically trying to make these points into a conspiracy theory. Oh, it is so wonderful. This is, I don't know how much more clear you can be on this. And you know what? God, how much over time? Oh, fuck, we're already at 25 minutes. I wanted this to be a 15-minute video. That never happens. Another one, Prager, Prager U. They used to be called Prager University, but they're not an actual university, like at all. No accreditation, no actual university campus, nothing like that. It's just Dennis Prager. He's like a professional bullshitter. But like things like this, schools can and should insist that every child be treated respectfully. Respectfully is in italics. I don't know why. I don't know what that's supposed to infer, without sowing gender confusion in the entire student population. Again, like, there's a false equivalency that is actually happening, right? Are you kidding me? Like, respecting, like, getting kids to respect people for who they are is somehow sowing gender confusion, I guess. I'm not, again, it's hard for me to put my mind in this sort of state where these things make sense to these people, but I got to tell you, it makes it's equally funny and terrifying at the same time, because you read this and you're like, there's no way these people can believe this. And then in the comment section, again, you don't know, there's no way to really know if the old grandma from Kansas who's commenting on this is really an old grandma from Kansas. But if you like look at someone's profile, I guess maybe you could, but it's just one of those things where I actually do believe people are this, I don't know if gullible is the word. And again, knowing the little that I do about cognitive science and knowing that free will is, again, like in the sense that we think about it, is really a myth, and that we are products of our environment, that, consciousness is literally just our brains autonomously responding, based on how long we've been alive, our experiences until that point. And so knowing that, it's kind of hard for me to sit back and blame people, especially when we know things like how, cognitive dissonance keeps people believing things, even if they're not true, to the point where, where that one guy in California who was a QAnon, he killed his family, he killed his wife, he killed his 2 young kids because he legitimately thought they were lizards. I'm not making that up either. That's an actual fucking story. And it is so tragic. And it's one of those things where, psychiatrists will tell you, like, don't have as much control as you think you do. And so it's one of those things where I'm trying to figure out, what can I contribute into this same space to get people to, I can't really say open your eyes, because again, I don't know, maybe, yes, maybe the people who don't get this or don't fall into these traps to know that on social media, because you see a lot of it, a lot of YouTubers especially utilize this tool to get clicks. Um, unless you're not alone on this, and that, I don't know, maybe if by putting these videos out there, if it can help you identify these things and maybe, I don't know, pull you out of some sort of like downward spiral into a bullshit rabbit hole, I guess maybe I've done something good. But anyway, so that's something I kind of wanted to talk about, and we're probably going to go on to more, but I wanted to kind of lay down a baseline video of how inference and false equivalencies are used to kind of generate that social outrage. And so many of the times, like I said before, people are just reading the headline. They don't even read the story because they don't care, right? It's about having this like weird community online of, you know, tribalistic ideals where they can like use it as a sounding board. I don't know. Anyway, that is a video. I have Dragon's Dogma to play, which if you made it this far in the video, congratulations. I tried Dragon's Dogma years ago on console, and I really didn't like it. I'm not a big fan of the whole like X for light attack and Y for, you know, heavy attack. I've almost completely adapted to the Souls trigger and bumper when it comes to attacking. And now I'm able to manipulate those variables on PC. And oh my God, that game is so fucking good. I know I'm tardy to the party on most of these games, but man, it's so good.